Okay, it's recording.
All right, good afternoon. So we are gathered here so that we can discuss the needs assessment. So we're gonna look at some data from our students that they've done from this school year and previous years to kind of compare and see if we can help close some gaps that they may have had. All right, so here's our agenda. We have our meeting norms, introduction. So I'm gonna introduce myself. You guys are going to introduce yourselves. Cause analysis, data, addressing gaps, problem statement, action plan, and closing. All right, so these are the norms that we're gonna have for our meeting. Living the learning, that means of course just be actively participating, engaging, asking questions about the topic that we are discussing. Make sure that you stay on the topic of the discussion. Of course, we're gonna share our responses. Let's just make sure that we keep them professional, that they're constructive, appropriate language that we're using as we share our discussions, and tame technology. So if you do have to step out, let me know. All right, so as you introduce yourself, you're gonna state your name, subject area that you teach, and the years of teaching.
Alright, my name is Mr. Cologne. I teach social studies. I am in my 4th year of teaching.
Awesome.
I'm Mr. Oh, and I'm Mr. True. I'm teaching math. This is also my 4th year of teaching.
Okay, and my name is Ms. Davis. This is my 9th year in education. I came from teaching elementary. This is my 1st year as a school counselor. Oh, I'm sorry, this is my 10th year in education. 9 years teaching, and this is my 1st year as a school counselor. All right, so this is what we're gonna do. This is how we start off to construct the needs assessment. This is the first step, the cause analysis. How can cause analysis help us to identify the root causes? So you're gonna consider the factors, whether they're internal or external, so things that we can control and things that we cannot control as educators or teachers in our classrooms. We're gonna develop a strategy. We're gonna gather data, and we're gonna identify some patterns and relationships that we may notice as we analyze the data. All right. So as you can see, we're gonna get ready to look at some numbers, some percentages, see how our campus suits well with the district. All right, so in just a moment, you will see what we call the Texas Academic Performance Report, also known as TAPER. So as we look at the different numbers and the percentages, I want you guys to take a moment and reflect on the data. These are the questions that I want you to consider. What are our demographics? What patterns do you notice? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What are areas of growth? And what are areas that we can improve upon? Okay, so if you look in your flyer, I actually have not the demographics, I have the other part. So you can take a look at the demographics here. So this is from the last school year, 2023 to 2024. So you can see we had 134 students at that time. You see our number of 9th graders, 10th graders, juniors, and seniors. For the sake of this needs assessment, we're gonna be focusing on our at-risk and our economically disadvantaged. So if you look at the information here, you can see we're typically a very small school. As you can see, we are predominantly, which ethnic background are we predominantly composed of?
Hispanic.
So we are predominantly Hispanic. We have 100, at that time we had 130 students who made up our population of Hispanics. We're 97% Hispanics. We had 1 African American student and 1 student that had 2 or more races. As you can see, for the female and the male, according to the percentage wise, we're almost like half and half, like half ladies, half gentlemen. And you look at our economic and at risk, majority of our students fall in the at-risk percentage, 92.5%. So what at-risk means is that either the students failed a course, they failed to STAR, or there's some other factors that are going on in their life like attendance, behavior. They're flagged for some kind of purpose in our systems. They might have some retention in a grade level or two. And so we consider those students at risk. So as you can see, majority of our campus falls into the at-risk component as well as the economically disadvantaged component. And there's another group that we also have a strong number in. Does anybody see that group?
Title
Okay, Title I, and then one more.
1, economic disadvantage.
And one more.
EL.
Emerging bilinguals, yes. So you see that at that time we had 45 students, with that making up 33.6% of the population. So about a third of our campus. And as you can see over here in the top right, we have a very small percentage of special ed students. We only have 7 students, making up 5.2% of our population on this campus. Okay, so currently, this is our current population taken as of this month. Post snapshot, so you know snapshot is taken in October where the district kind of like takes a picture to see our data. So post snapshot in this second semester, we currently have 119 students. So as you can see, it's pretty much evenly distributed almost in each category, except the juniors are slightly larger than all the other classes of students. All right, so here's a look at our report card rating from 2022. So as you can see, they were A-rated campus. If you notice, I have a little disclaimer at the bottom. 23 and 24 were not available because everything was under review with TEA and all of that, with the way that they wanted to rate the school. So that's why you're looking at a 22 compared to last year. And then before that, do we recall what economic event we were going through?
COVID.
We were going through COVID, so that also impacted our ratings. And you can see when we look at some more of the data in just a minute, how much they may have played an impact in the gaps that we still see in our students almost 5 years later post-COVID. All right, so this data is actually in your handout. So if you look at your handout, I kind of blew it up so you can see it more than just kind of referring back and forth to the screen, so you guys can see this data. So this is from 22-23. So what I did was I have a snippet of all the STAR scores. English 1, English 2, Algebra 1, Biology, and on the top right is US History, if you were wondering which one that was. So if you take a look, let's just take a moment to kind of examine this data, and then we can refer to answering some of those questions in your mind as you take a moment to kind of analyze some of the data. So I'm gonna give you guys a few minutes to kind of just look at it, take in some of the numbers, some of the things you notice. So I have the 22-23, and as well as I also have the 23-24 data. So I want you guys to kind of take a look and look at both of those two, kind of do a side-by-side comparison. So take about 5 minutes to look at that data, and then we're gonna spend a little work time working on some of the pages that I have for you in the handout that you have on the table. You can take a moment to jot down a few notes too, or circle some things, or highlight some things if you see anything that kind of catches your eye or grabs your attention. All right, so if you look at the very first page in your handout, you will see that we have some questions. So there's 3 questions. What are some reasons/barriers that may be hindering students' performance in the classroom? What are some learning gaps students may exhibit? And what are some teaching gaps? So I'm gonna give you guys about 5 to 10 minutes to kind of jot some of those thoughts down, and then we will share out. All right, I'm gonna give you guys about 4 more minutes, and then we're gonna kind of share out, and then I'll add some of your ideas on the slide. All right, you guys have about 2 more minutes, and we're going to share out some of your ideas. Okay, gonna give you guys 2 minutes. That way you have your full 5 if you want to think of anything else that you might not have thought of. And if you have more than 3, that's fine, or if you have more than 4, it's okay. All right, so let's look at the first question. What are some teaching gaps that are hindering our economically disadvantaged student? So as we think back to the TAPER, or Texas Academic Performance Report, we're thinking about those economically disadvantaged students and how they made up a large chunk of our population. So in your opinion, what do you think are some teaching gaps that are keeping them or holding them back from being at their highest potential?
Well, some of our students, 7 from the chart, were identified as special needs, and we don't really have like any paraprofessionals or anyone at the school to maybe assist with that daily in the classroom. Like we have a
Okay.
sped,
Like wraparound specialist.
yeah, who comes with
Well, the wraparound specialist role is not really like pushing and pulling in. That would be like if we had a sped support on staff, then that would be their role. Because with the campus our size, we don't really have the manpower to meet their need, but that is a great one, so we're gonna put that in. Can you repeat it and I'll type it up?
Yeah, the lack of pushing personnel for sped students.
And you said something else as well that was important, like a para or something as well.
Or a paraprofessional, right?
Okay, what were some of your other ideas, and then we'll move on to Mr. True as well.
I put, honestly, like a lack of culturally relevant teaching. I know, for example, a lot of our students are like of a Mexican background. I personally, like, I'm new to the state, so having that cultural relevance, especially in my classroom with social studies, could be a bit of a challenge. Maybe they feel like they can't relate to us as educators because we have a diverse background, which I feel like helps us, but then also can look to those kids as like, oh, well, they don't understand my struggle.
Okay, so cultural. All right, Mr. True, I saw you kind of agreeing with that point. So what was your, what was
Yeah,
one
I
of
agree with the
yours?
culture thing, and also some students have some health issue, what they never telling us about it. That's kind of stopping us from understand them and kind of adjust whatever happened in their life. Also, they some of them have some disadvantage in learning.
Mhm.
Like they learn in different way. They more like virtual learner. or
So
something.
the learning
Visual learning,
style.
yeah, their
Okay.
learning style is different.
Okay, so let's start with the cultural one. So let's just kind of merge both of your 2 responses that you guys had about the culture. I know you said something about a gap, and I was kind of working while you guys were working too, and that's what I was thinking too, of the generational gap. Because we do have some excellent teachers. We have a wide span though, and like you said, not really relatable, or they can't really relate or comprehend. So I do like that piece. So lack of culture immersion, is that what we want to say? And Mr. True, you mentioned a different one from what Mr. Cologne said. It was something else, the last part. The learning styles.
Yeah,
learning styles. Okay, so Okay, so that when we get to the next component, that can be something that we keep in mind as differentiation. All right, let's look at the second question that we have here. So you guys address the teaching gaps. What are some learning gaps that are hindering our economically disadvantaged students? So we talked about those teaching gaps, that how we can bridge that gap. What can we do about the learning gaps? Because as we said, we do have some at-risk students who exhibit or fall in one or multiple of those categories when we looked at our taper data a few minutes ago.
The biggest gap I can think of are the gaps from those COVID years when they were virtual. A lot of our students are a little behind because it was a big adjustment for them moving virtual, for their teachers moving virtual. So they didn't really get a lot of the content from those years.
Also, some of them come from homeschool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so recovering from the COVID years, and you said homeschool. What can you expand on it a little bit?
Like some students never have a chance to actually meet up with a teacher, like actual teacher. All they learning is from home. That's it.
Okay, so you think that it might be some social skills lacking? Okay.
Some communication too.
Okay,
Communication and
homeschool.
social skills.
Yep, I would say another double-edged sword is because our class sizes are so small that a lot of the kids lack some social skills.
Mm-hmm.
So limiting homeschool, hindering social skills, and there's something else you said with the homeschool.
Communication.
Yes, communication. Which kind of they kind of tie into each other because they're socially awkward in social situations. Okay, so we looked at some of those. I'm gonna change this font so that you can kind of distinguish between the two. So you know what we said versus the question. Whatever. So we'll make that red because these are your answers. All right, so far we've had a great discussion thus far about what we think those learning gaps are and those teaching gaps. All right, so I'm gonna continue the slide. So this is where we left off at with our Think Right Share. All right, so that moves us to the next part where we want to form a problem statement. So as you can see on the next page, it's almost like a chart. So you're more than welcome to fold your paper in half or draw a line in the middle. So we have, when we're thinking about the problem and those solutions and what they're experiencing, I want you guys to think about the factors that you can control as a teacher, and then I want you guys to think about the factors that you cannot control. Because both of you, all of the situations that you guys mentioned in the previous Think Right and Share would tie into these factors that we can or cannot control. So take 5 minutes and kind of brainstorm some of those ideas, and then we will kind of form our next phase of this needs assessment. right, I'm gonna give you guys 2 more minutes to do some more brainstorming and thinking, and we'll come back together. All right, Mr. True, still thinking, or?
I'm good.
All right, so, this time I guess I'll share out first. So these are some factors that I thought of, and then if yours kind of coincides, then we'll kind of dialogue from there. So these are things I said the teachers can control. They can control their classroom environment, providing notes, possibly tutorials or intervention is needed, how lessons are delivered to a certain extent. I said factors that teachers cannot control: the student's home life, students who work, students with younger siblings who, watch the siblings cook, prep meals, those kind of things. If students have lack of sleep, we cannot control that. And then I also said government and politics. All right, so Mr. True, we're gonna start with you. What would you say are factors that can and cannot be controlled?
For me, what we can control is what student behavior in class. That is something that we can control. And that's kind of collab with your environment. It would create an environment safe enough for them, and make sure that they follow a routine that should be good. So that is something. That is one other thing that the teacher can control. Also, I think that the teacher can control their improve in learning ability. That is something that we can control too, or we try to control.
So like professional development,
yeah,
kind
no, like their performance.
Oh, how we, okay.
The performance.
How you perform, okay.
What we cannot control, I put on here, is whatever their health issue is.
Oh, that's a good one. Health issues.
Like the student background, like what you mentioned earlier, the same thing. And of course, their attendance.
Oh yes, that is definitely a big one. Okay, Mr. Cologne, do you have anything different, or you have some things that you concur that match up with Mr. True's choices?
Factors we can control, again, I said differentiation in lessons. We kind of all said that. Using student assessment data to help address some misconceptions, so taking that data when we get it to be able to see, okay, where are they excelling, where are they struggling, so that we could touch base on those things. More group work activities, more like social environment activities, give them the opportunity to work with each other. Factors we can control, I put like student commute times. I know because this isn't a zone school, some of the students have a longer commute than others. Homework completion. And then their learning styles. Obviously we can't change that, we can't fix that, so we have to adjust to those.
Okay, so those are all excellent things. So let us look at this slide here with what is the problem. So we all came up with some great things, or some things kind of tied into each other. So what do you all feel is a problem? And then we're gonna answer these other questions, and then on our last part, we're gonna come up with an action plan. That's the last page of the document. So what is, I know we have at least maybe one or two, but we're gonna focus on one. What do you feel is one problem that if we address it and tackle it, we can close some of the gaps on our campus? So think about the taper data we looked at, think about our at-risk, think about economically disadvantaged, think about all those categories and all of the things that you guys have shared up to this point. What is one problem that we can tackle as we create this needs assessment? So if we look at all the factors that we shared that we can and cannot control, if we look back at those reasons or barriers that are hindering us, what can we come up with?
Just pick one.
Yeah, we can pick any one you guys want to focus on. So I kept hearing Mr. Cologne say differentiation. I've heard attendance. I heard the classroom environment. So it seems like that is maybe your focal point. So what's something that we can address as we create this needs assessment and we think about all of those statements? So differentiation and learning style seems to be synonymous. So what are some things that you guys think that if you do effectively as teachers, it would address that problem?
For me, I don't know with Mr. Colo and you, I think that attendance is the problem that I will focusing more on, because we cannot address the rest if the students are not here.
So would you say that's a huge problem, or would you say that the differentiation is a bigger situation? Because I think the attendance has kind of been lately, or just like overall.
Well, I'm not really sure about that, but differentiation is, well, first of all, differentiation is something that we can have to do it throughout a year.
Right.
Like
So
we have
if
to
we
build on what students need and what are their learning style.
Right, so since we've had them and we've completed a whole first semester, we're kind of a little more familiar. So that's why I feel we could tackle the differentiation piece. And then that would also tie in with the safety and the routines that you mentioned. And then he mentioned differentiation and kind of closing misconceptions and data, which all ties into student learning.
Okay.
So what would we like to say is our problem? We don't know how to address the learning styles, or what are we gonna tackle in this? Because whatever we choose on this problem statement, that's what we're gonna address in our action plan, which is the next component.
I say we could put the problem as a
Different level of learning.
or the problem could be addressing students' shortcomings.
Student various learning abilities, or?
Yeah, I like that. Student very.
Okay, so that's our problem. How do we address students' various learning abilities / styles? I think that kind of
No,
covers it.
ability should be funny. Yeah.
Style, whatever. All right, so we know that all of our students have some kind of different learning ability, aspect, style, component. What causes like such a variation? What do you think would be the root cause of that?
Different background. Economic background.
Okay, so the economics, okay. Alright, so this is gonna be a big question then. Why are students experiencing these problems? Okay. So if we think back to economically disadvantaged, we think back to our population, we think back to what's going on currently in the news and in the media and the government, why do we think that our students are experiencing problems?
A lot of uncertainty.
A lot of uncertainty?
Everything. With their family life, political life, economically.
Mental life.
their dating lives, everything.
Okay, so students are experiencing.
Everything can trigger it.
A lot of uncertainty in personal, school, and life in general. Okay. All right, so we've got 3 of the components answered. So what could we do, or as solutions, how can we close these gaps? We know we have students with different learning styles. We know that majority of our students, almost 100%, are economically disadvantaged or at-risk students. So at the current moment, we know that a lot of our students are dealing with clouds of uncertainty. We've got the political things going on. We've got their own home life going on. We got the school going on. We got the takeover and the protests. We have a lot of political ramifications going on in the government and outside the government in our school body. So what are some solutions that we can propose that would close the gap that we're experiencing here at our campus?
I would say, uh, pro- provide what student need.
Okay, so can we be a little more specific? Okay, we're gonna
Or
help
like-
their needs.
For me, we always say the first thing should be like build a relationship with the student, like a bond between us.
Okay, so building a relationship and
And
bond
Among
also
us and the community.
also might help with this generational gap as well. So I like that. So build, if I can spell, a relationship and bond with the students
And
and
their
community.
family or community. Or
Student
whatever.
families and community. Was it like that? Thank you for autocorrect. All right. So here is what we have. All right, we got some great stuff. So next page and last and final page that we're gonna focus on. So we talked about all these wonderful things. We've thought about the problems. We've thought about the factors, external, internal. So we've already kind of done a little bit of this work. So the action plan time. We thought about that problem. We got our problem there. Now, what are some ways that we can address the problem that we just created here together? So I'll go back to it real quick. So this is what we came up with, as you can see on the screen. We felt that our problem was addressing students' various learning styles / abilities, or learning abilities / styles. That's what we felt that the problem was. The cause, very vague and big, but it is a huge cause. Economically disadvantaged, which is also something that we can or cannot control.
Cannot control.
We cannot control that. And we said that the students are experiencing these problems because of all of the uncertainty, personal, school, life. It spans quite a few categories. And so what you all have proposed is we gathered our thoughts in our minds and our thoughts together. We have decided that our solution to close this gap is to build a better relationship. All right, so that would kind of go into the how will the problem be addressed component. So I want you guys to take a few minutes, take about 5 minutes to think how we can address that problem, because it's a pretty big issue that we're bringing up. So what are some ways that we can tackle it? So take about 5 minutes of some think time, some brainstorming time, and let's see what you guys come up with. Now, as you write ways to address the problem, I want you guys to think about how we can build that bond and that relationship with our parents, with our students, and with the community. So make sure you address that as you think about how we are fixing our problem, because that's what we proposed. Looks like everybody has put their pencils down, papers down. All right, so, Mr. Cologne, since I started with Mr. True last time, give us 2 ways that you feel that we can address this problem.
I said positive campus culture, making sure that we are making it a safe space for the students, staying positive, making sure that they feel comfortable coming to school, keeping open communication with parents, keeping them on top of like student progress and their grades so that they're able to have a clearer picture of how their students are performing instead of having to rely on their word of mouth.
So those are some great things, and if you have any students, parents who are looking to find out their progress, and maybe the kid is hiding the progress reports, whatever, they can always access the grades through Power School. So all they have to do is call us, and all we have to do is look their student up, and we have the code that we can give them where they can kind of, as you guys enter them, they can log in and see them. So that would definitely impact with that one. And I have heard communication. I've heard communication from the parents as well. When we had the parent session, they're like, man, we need the communication. So that's definitely something that we can focus on to close out this school year, as well as walking into the 25-26 school year. All right, Mr. True, what about 2 or 3 that you had to share for the addressing?
You say most on mine, but one of the things I want to say is we can provide students with multiple opportunity for them to improve themselves, or like to say communicate with the parent is one of the one I like the most. Or we can collab with all the staff together, like work together to help to support that student to meet what they need, create a learning environment safe learning environment where students can explore themselves, express themselves, and can be comfortable with the area that they have.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is some of your ways to solve the problem also kind of tie into those factors that we can control. We can control the classroom environment. We can control the culture. We're the ones who set it. So all of these, if you think about all the pages that we've done, they're kind of all starting to tie in together as we form that action plan. So let's go ahead and discuss our takeaways that we've done today. So these are the things that we did today. We analyzed the taper data. That was the wonderful charts that you guys saw with the breakdown of the percentages from our STAR data, as well as looking at our percentages of our students. We addressed the learning gaps and the teaching gaps. We broke down some of those causes, what we feel was leading to the cause of those things. And then last but not least, we came up with our action plan that we will implement to address those learning gaps. All right, and these will be our next steps of action. So we will implement the action plan. You guys can share it with your teammates if you want to kind of piggyback off of each other. You're welcome to implement the action plan. Our next one, we will follow up what's working, what's not working. And in our next video, we will discuss that as we go ahead and implement the second phase, which will be a focus group, which is going to carry us further into the work of the needs assessment. So make sure you keep these materials that we had today, because we will more than likely refer back to them as we continue these progressions. All right, thank you so much for your time, and that concludes our needs assessment video today.